A new report on climate change indicates that Canada could be warming at twice the global rate. What up, everyone? In this next video I want to talk about this report that was issued earlier this month in April. So let's just dive right into it. I have a story here, so let's dissect what's going on. This is an article on cbc.ca, and it's published on April 1st, which I think for a report like this, it is a very suspect date to publish on a story like this on, but nonetheless, let's still dive into it. Canada is on average experiencing warming at twice the rate of the rest of the world, with northern Canada heating up at almost 3 times the global average, according to a new government report. The study, Canada's Changing Climate Report, CCCR, that's 3 C's, was commissioned by Environment and Climate Change Canada. It says that since 1948, Canada's annual average temperature over the land has warmed 1.6 degrees Celsius, with higher rates seen in the north, the prairies, and northern British Columbia. In northern Canada, the annual average temperature has increased by 2.3 degrees Celsius. Now, I do live in the Yukon, however, I've only been here for about a year now, so I can't really say if I've noticed a difference. So, I just want to point that out there. Let's continue on with the article. According to the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, since 1948, global average temperatures have increased by about 0.8 degrees Celsius. Along with these temperature increases, the CCCR says Canada is experiencing increases in precipitation, particularly in the winter, extreme fire weather, and water supply shortages in summer, and a heightened risk of coastal flooding. The report was authorized by government scientists from the Ministries of Environment and Climate Change, Fisheries and Oceans, and Natural Resources, with the contributions from university experts. The document says that while warming in Canada has been the result of both human activity and natural variations in the climate, I wonder if that's going to be addressed to see just, at least in this report, which side what percent is responsible for what. I'm curious to see if that'll be in there. So let's just continue reading on. The human factor is dominant, but dominant by how much? Again, that's still vague. 51 to 49, that's still a majority and it's still dominant, but that is within striking distance of natural factors overtaking human involvement, but anyway, let's continue on. Especially emissions of greenhouse gases. So now we're apparently getting some charts. Increased precipitation. Increased warmth has had a number of effects in Canada, including greater precipitation, the report says. The author's observations show that the annual precipitation has increased across Canada since 1948, with larger increases in northern Canada and parts of Manitoba, Ontario, northern Quebec, and Atlantic Canada. Warming has led to a reduction in how much snowfall accounts for precipitation in southern Canada. Annual temperature, here's a chart. Yeah, annual temperature change in Canada in 1900 to 2020. Are they predicting realistically what's going to happen in the next 100 years? I find that suspect. But anyway, black line is historical, blue low emissions, high emissions. Interesting. Additionally, warming will intensify the severity of heat waves and contribute to higher risks of drought and wildfires. The report says that extreme heat events, which currently occur every 20 years on average, will happen once every 5 years in the middle of the century under a low emission scenario, and every other year in a high emission scenario. Okay. I guess this brings a little more context to what this chart was. Maybe this chart should have been put at the end of these 2 paragraphs. It's just an editorial tip. so you wouldn't come to this and wonder what the hell am I looking at. But anyway, low and high emission scenarios. The report's early release saw it come out as the federal government's carbon pricing plan was going into effect in Manitoba, New Brunswick, Ontario, and Saskatchewan. Of course, now we got to tie this into the carbon tax. Knew this was going to happen. Ottawa has imposed a fuel levy in these provinces as a backdrop because they don't have carbon pricing schemes. Kind of a suspect word for carbon tax, calling it a scheme, but whatever, of their own in place. The report stresses that efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the coming decades will have an increasing impact on the amount of additional warming beyond this time frame. The report stresses that efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the coming decades will have an increasing impact on the amount of additional warming beyond this time frame. The report says the national annual average temperature increase projected for the late century compared to the reference period of 86 to 2005 ranges from low emission scenario of 1.8 degrees Celsius to high scenario of 6.3 degrees Celsius. Observed changes, another chart, observed changes in the annual temperature from 48 to 16. So as you can see, there's nothing going down. There's some that look like here could be breaking even or going up slightly. Everything seems to be, at least here, from 1 to 2.5 up north, especially Northwest Territories and Yukon, starting to go orange to red. According to the now released report, the only way to keep global temperatures rise in line with the targets set by nations at Paris Climate Summit in 2015 is for global emissions to peak almost immediately with rapid and deep reductions thereafter. The report also predicts that under the medium emissions scenario, glaciers in Canada's west will lose between 74% to 96% of their volume by the end of the century. That seems rather quick to me. However, I'm not a scientist in this. And they posted a correction. It's great that they would post a correction. An earlier version of the story said that more intense rainfall contributed to increased urban flooding. In fact, while the report states that precipitation is higher overall, it did not find that the episode of short duration extreme rainfall will have increased or established a connection with these increased exacerbated flooding. Alright. So, I find it extremely suspect every time there's these new reports that keep painting the climate change scenario as being worse and worse and worse. It's predicted to go one way, and then when the next report comes out, it seems it's even worse. It's even worse than projected, and this, to me, explains why so many people are skeptical of climate change. It seems that with these reports, meteorologists or climatologists or the people that are studying climate change and trying to fight this issue aren't able to predict what's going on. And when it comes to that, that raises the question of what do we do? What do we actually do? To me, I could definitely see that the climate has increased. Now, the big question to me is, I don't think this has ever actually been answered. Ice ages start and end because the climate of the Earth changes. It either gets colder, glaciers grow, and we enter an ice age. Warms up, they melt, we come out of the ice age. Now, is what we are going through now completely natural? How much of it is man-made? That is in my opinion, that is where the debate still needs to take place. How much of this is truly man-made? How much of this can we truly fight? And truthfully, what do we do? In one of my last videos, I talked about and this was the one about Doug Ford. Doug Ford's plan to have stickers posted at Ontario Gas supposed to explain how the carbon tax is affecting gas prices. I went on to how a carbon tax is really a band-aid solution on a much bigger problem. I don't see how the biggest problem I see in climate change is one side wants to shut down debates. One side wants to shut down discussion. They feel they have the solution and don't want to debate how that is going to work, how that is supposed to save the environment, how that is supposed to preserve the environment, how that is supposed to save us from these increasing temperatures that are going to wreak havoc on the planet. It's just this, and if you don't have any solution, well, I guess we need to go with this. Well, carbon tax, I'm sorry, is not the solution. I'll reiterate again. We live in communities that are way too big to where you have to live in one end of the city and work in the other. And the only way to properly get around is to own a car. If we truly want to combat climate change, we have to rethink how our society is built. Maybe globalism, having a global society, is not the way to go. Maybe we have to rely on the goods that we could produce locally rather than import what we can't get and live that way. To where then we're not having to worry about trucking in or flying in or having boats ship goods that we can't produce here. A carbon tax is just going to make the current society pay more for what we need. And it's not going to actually fix anything. And if this report is truly correct, it shows that yes, we do need to take action, but we need to have a coherent plan in place that isn't going to hurt people, that isn't going to hurt people that can't afford to make changes. If you want people to change their behavior, you have to make sure that they can afford to make those changes, that those changes are available to them. But anyway, I have no faith that this scenario is going to change. I firmly believe that it's still going to remain a contentious issue that one side, the left, does not want to have any discussion on, just thinks their proposals are what has to happen and anybody else is a denier and an idiot and don't believe a word they say because they don't have a plan. And truthfully, there are some people on the right that don't have a plan and probably never will. This is an issue that I agree you can't ignore, but we need to have something coherent in place. Not something that's going to hurt us even more and not actually do a thing to solve the problem it was intending to solve. I want to thank you for watching this video. If you like what you saw, please like it. If you don't, well, there's the thumbs down. If you agree, disagree, or just want to continue the conversation, please leave a comment down below. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Facebook, Minds, and Twitter. Links will be down below in the description. Thank you again. Have yourself a good day. Until next time.